Hello, this is an assessment for restoration of a Steinway upright piano made in about 1881, 137 centimetres tall. So it's a tall piano, 85 keys as most Steinways of that age are. I think possibly all, but if you're in the trade and can confirm that, would be useful. I also don't know the model number of this. I've seen E associated with old ones and N too, so if you're familiar with them, please, that would be very useful. There's a reasonable number of old Steinways in the UK. So it's quite common to come across them. You can see that the front rail's been damaged here. Now, the casework isn't a disaster, so I think it's been repolished at some stage. In fact, you can see where the sconces were and they've been taken off, and obviously that's been repolished. So the piano in general, let's have a look at it. Apart from the front rail there, it can probably be made good rather than repolished, although on the top there's a major issue with some sort of plant. If you've got plants on top of pianos, really encourage you not to water them. If it goes down here, it can damage the dampers. If water gets through here, it goes onto the dampers. That's really important. Looking down the side here, you can see there's some veneer missing at the bottom there, so that's the back there. And we'll have a look at the major issue before we look at the inside of the piano. Actually, if you listen to the bass, you can hear what the major issue is. Let's play from the middle downwards, and as we go down, you'll hear the problem. You can hear the buzz there. There's a very severe buzz. When it's like that, it's almost definitely the soundboard. So I've taken the bottom back panel off here, and if we look down, you can see visually, hopefully it'll show up here, what the problem is. The soundboard's come away from the ribs, so that's come unglued. If you see, I can push it with my finger and that should be stuck onto this rib. That quite severely bent outwards. To repair it would be difficult without taking the whole piano apart, and in fact I don't think we'll be attempting that without restringing the piano. There's no way of getting that apart. If you're in the trade and like to comment on that, I'll be very useful to know if you've had this problem before. Very unusual for a Steinway to go like that, or any piano for that matter. In fact, I can't remember the last time I've seen that. In the UK, it's not common to see that problem. If you've come across that very often, then that'd be useful to know. But around here, it looks much better. I don't think it's come off here, but definitely come unglued down there, and that's what's causing all that buzzing. So you can actually hear it. If I push it, you can hear it sort of drumming, and that's buzzing when you play the piano. So definitely would like to take the whole piano apart and therefore restring the piano. And obviously while we're at it, we can refinish the soundboard, refinish the frame. It's worth doing on an old Steinway. The main problem is that it might have lost some down bearing at the same time. Down bearing is where you need a slight angle here. If you're familiar with the exact angle on this age of Steinway, again, that would be really helpful to know. But just a little bit of pressure downwards to distribute the sound. But because the soundboard is damaged like that, it might have lost some down bearing. If you've had experience with repairing that, as you can tell from the way I'm speaking, it's very unusual. It's very rusty, these strings here, but that's nearly at concert pitch. We'll look at the worksheet in a minute. So I won't mention too many other issues because that's such a major one really that needs resolving. If we listen to the piano again, it has a Steinway type of tone there, so that's promising. But as we go down, well, the tone there without the soundboard problems there, it's not lost its down bearing at that point, I don't think. Although with the buzz it's very difficult to tell. Quite reasonable. It's just below concert pitch. There's one string that's been replaced there, but a long time ago. The strings are good otherwise. Very tubby, but that's a lot to do with the soundboard. It may be that just putting an extra turn in the string will help as well. The tuning pins are reasonably tight. I'm not going to play the piano because it really is it's quite a disaster. There's action work that needs doing too, as we'll look at this check sheet now. So I've checked everything else on the piano, and see the picture's very slightly flat, so not hugely flat surprisingly considering the piano is so damaged. And well, you can see the other things here. The serial numbers on the back of the piano. If you can't find serial numbers on the front, sometimes they're stamped on the back of the piano, and tuning pins are tight, which is encouraging, but the strings are quite corroded. I don't think we break any pitch raising from experience. You can lubricate and then take them down and back up again. Key dips 10.5. Hammer blows quite, it's usually 47, 48, 53. It feels fine actually, but the touch is heavy. Well, that's because it needs lubricating, so as we mentioned this many times before. So this is work that would need doing. Dismantle, repair soundboard and check down bearing, and I really don't think that can be done without restringing. Unfortunately, that's a shame, because all the strings are reasonably good, and you could keep the old strings theoretically, but it's possible to do that. We have done that before, but generally speaking would replace them. It's a little bit better, although you don't retain the sound of the old Steinway quite so much. The new strings give a bit more body. So if you're in the trade again, please comment. Very useful to have comments. I really appreciate your comments, and so sorry they don't always get time to reply, but thank you so much for those who comment and those who answer questions as well of other people. That's really helpful. So I should try and find more time to do that, but seem to run out. So the possible regluing the soundboard without taking it apart, well, I don't think we're prepared to risk that really, because we might find we've done the job and it doesn't got the results that we wanted. So I will play the piano just briefly one-handed to get some idea of tone and some idea of the problem as well. So if we start in the bottom bass, as I tend to, so starting here, you see that's making it sound very, very bad, and not common for us to find that here, really, soundboards like that, and very thin sounding generally. Has got the underlying Steinway tone here, so it's possible to resurrect it. I don't know if you can hear the underlying sound there. Steinway's obviously such a beautiful sound. That's why so many of these pianos are still working and going strong. But this one really, well, it's worth doing if you want a good piano. The value of the piano, unfortunately, it won't be that high afterwards. It's an 85 key Steinway. We tend not to take those on because musicians are looking for 88 note generally. But if it's a piano that means a lot to you, then it's worth doing, but will cost quite a reasonable amount. So looking again at the dismantling the whole thing, repairing the soundboard, and there's lots of action work to do actually. The dampers are very varied. They're not pulling off properly either. So I hope that's been helpful. Thank you very much for listening.